Hello and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be covering the events of Thursday, July 28th. And before I start, I just want to welcome all the people who came from the Durance channel. I really do appreciate getting shouted out like that, and that just encourages me to keep on going, so I really appreciate it. So today was very eventful, much more than the past few days have been. Well, we did have some events with the power plant being taken on the 26th and a lot of strikes and stuff like that, but really we didn't see many changes. But today was a very eventful day, so I'm going to go through all of that. It might take a while. Now, first thing I want to talk about are some of the strikes. So there was a strike again over here on this the city, specifically around here in this airfield. Now, what's being said is that there were 5 people killed in the strike and another 25 wounded. From the article I read, it was earlier in the day, so it didn't actually identify all of the people that were victimized in the attack. So what it says in the article that I read is that one of 3 casualties, because at the time they reported 3 dead. They say that one of them was a serviceman, a member of the AFU, and then the other 2 were guards at an electrical substation. And 9 more troops were wounded, according to this article. But yeah, the number is much higher now at 25. Yeah, this has been targeted multiple times in the war, and like the Ukrainians are not dissuaded. They keep on putting military equipment in here, understandably. And that's not it for strikes. There were a lot of strikes coming from Belarus, especially today, which is something we haven't seen in a while, because we did see some of it at the beginning of the war. We saw Russian troops cross the border through Belarus. And then we had Ukraine sort of threaten Belarus by sending forces to the Whelan region and all of those areas, and then actually firing into Belarus itself. But now today we saw earlier in the day, in the morning, we saw that 20 to 50 strikes were launched from Belarus, and they hit the Kiev Oblast, the Zhytomyr Oblast, and the Chernihiv Oblast. Now, the one in Kiev was sort of notable because what happened there is that you had 6 caliber missiles, and they hit this military unit called A3723 in HEATS. And I'm going to see if I can find it on the map just to provide some context, but it was a pretty big strike, and then you saw the same thing occur in several towns across the northern part of Ukraine. So that's not it for strikes. We have more that I want to talk about as the video goes on, but I want to just get into the fighting itself in Kherson first of all. Now, first thing to know here is there were just like an hour ago, 4 strikes on Nikolaev were reported. So we're gonna get more information about that in the coming hours after this video is released. And earlier in the day, probably 24 hours ago by now, you had other strikes on Mykolaiv, and you had the 28th Mechanized Brigade, their redeployment base in this city was destroyed. They also had the 79th Airborne Assault Brigade. Their positions were destroyed by Russian strikes, and they were located near the concrete factory and this auto transport company. So, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, you had 200 troops eliminated, quote unquote. Now, that of course that's either killed or wounded, and then like 20 vehicles destroyed as well. So yeah, the Mykolaiv is being hit hard, and I'm going to get into why that is now. So it has to do a lot with the bridge that was partially destroyed. Now, what happened with the with a bridge over here, the Antonovsky Bridge. So that basically it was targeted by the HIMARS and the MLRS, and there was extensive damage done to it. It's not destroyed; the base is still intact, so you could potentially rebuild it at a quick enough pace to get transport up and running. I don't know what the time frame would be, but I'm sure it would be of great importance to Russia to get this bridge up and running again, because there are not a lot of areas for transporting supplies across to the other side of the Dnipro River. So basically what happened today is that we got images from this area, specifically around here. We saw that a pontoon bridge was starting to be built, and this is something that I was talking about a few days ago, that Russia would have to start building these pontoon bridges if they wanted to continue supplies to Kherson, because the problem is these pontoon bridges, they could also be struck by the HIMARS, but here's the thing. One rocket of HIMARS is it costs so much more than just setting up a pontoon bridge. So eventually, if you keep on building these pontoon bridges, it's just going to be at the expense of the Ukrainians more than at the expense of the Russians. You're going to see that Ukraine would just run out of rockets, and then they'd have to be resupplied by the Americans. And eventually, Russia would just succeed at resupplying the western bank of the Dnieper River. But the Ukrainian strategy is pretty clear, and if they succeed, it would be a major blow to Russia. Basically, they want to cut off all supplies, of course, from the main Russian stronghold in the eastern part of Kherson, just to isolate the Russians in the western part of Kherson in order to just quickly push them back without much fighting. And then they'd have this natural barrier along the Dnieper River, and they would also take back the city Kherson, which would be a major blow to Russia. No doubt about that. It would be a major blow to morale. It would cause a lot of panic with the higher ups. You'd see that they'd have to divert troops from other sectors of the front line to sort of keep this patch from exploding out of proportions. So yeah, it is a big deal, and you are seeing that Ukraine is ramping up their offensive operations around here. So I made some adjustments to the map. For instance, all these towns around here, maybe they were never under Russian control, but I had them marked as such. But now we know for sure that like Blahodatne, Kiselivka, all these areas, they are under the Ukrainian control, and also Novokhyhirivka. So I just wanted to make that clear, because of course I'm always going to correct stuff when I find out I'm wrong. We might see like another push around here from the Kryvyi sector of things, because over the past few days we've seen that the 138th Anti-Air Brigade, it's being transferred from Apostolove towards the front line around here. And we're seeing a lot of different companies and like units within the 138th Brigade being sent to the front line. So they're going to play a vital role in whatever plans Ukraine has in the future for this area. Now, what else we're seeing is that Ukraine, even if they do isolate the Antonovsky Bridge and they take out all the pontoon bridges, you might see Russia sort of rely on this area over here to transfer their supplies to the other side of Kherson. Now, the problem with this is that it would create a big bottleneck, and you want to have more than one bridge open for you for transport, because you can't just rely on put all your eggs in one basket. It would be a major vulnerability for Russia. Now, this is around the hydroelectric plant that was targeted. It is still it has been targeted several times. I think it was even targeted today, maybe earlier in the day, but to my knowledge, it's still intact. There isn't much damage from the previous strikes, so you can still see some supplies being transferred from here. Another thing is about this entire Kherson front is that the Russian Ministry of Defense, they're saying that over the past few days you had 34 killed and 84 wounded in the 60th Brigade. And the 60th Brigade, I'm pretty sure that they were fighting in this area over here. Let me see if I can find it, because it is important to show it on the map. I'm talking about the Avdiivka-Lazove line. I'm pretty sure that it's around here. It is a pretty narrow two towns. It's a narrow corridor that Ukraine used to cross the Inhulets River. I just want to see if I could find it for here. So we have Avdiivka and Lazove. And basically what happened was, a few days ago, Ukraine crossed the river and they set up defensive positions around here, sort of as a bridgehead, to exploit the setbacks that Russia suffered over the past few days. But in response to this, we had the Russians, specifically the airborne troops, with the help of artillery, they were able to push back the Ukrainians. Specifically the sappers that were in this area, that they were being sent to the front line to sort of prepare defensive positions, but they were pushed back. So this attempt was foiled for the Ukrainians, but we will see more of this occurring in the future. There's a lot of areas for Ukraine to sort of push forward. Maybe around here we could see a Ukrainian assault. It could be across the entire river. And that's something that Russia should keep an eye on. Last thing about Kherson is that I made a change to the map over here just based on the fact that Alexandriivka, I thought that was under Ukrainian control, but I saw this video of a school being Russians inspecting this destroyed school, and it was geolocated to Alexandriivka. So, of course, I'm correcting that now. But that's really it for Kherson. I do expect a lot more news from here in the future, so just keep your eyes out for this sector of the fighting. Now, regarding Zaporizhia, nothing has changed really, besides the fact that we saw some intensity in the strikes. We saw a lot of strikes, especially on Huliaipoli over here, and we're seeing a lot on Huliaipilsky and on Orikhiv. Now, these are just the major points of Ukrainian defense along this line. And we might see some heating up of the fighting around here, just because Zelensky, he said that Russia is planning a massive redeployment of troops around this southern sector of the fighting. He specifically mentioned 3 cities where there will be a lot of redeploying of Russian troops. So he said it will occur around Zaporizhia, and that's probably in an effort to take Zaporizhia. I think that is one of Russia's major goals at the moment, to take Zaporizhia. And the other city is Melitopol over here. And then, of course, in Kherson, we're going to see redeployment according to the Ukrainians, which is understandable. You want to have your weak points sort of solidified, and then maybe in the future advance there. Now, besides that, we also know that 10% of the residents of Zaporizhia already have received Russian passports, and that number will only go up as time goes on, as these visas and these citizenship requests are increasing. And a member of the administrative council of the Russian area of Zaporizhia, his name is Vladimir Rogov, and he says that there might be a referendum in the first half of September, which is pretty interesting. We'll see if that goes through, and it would make a lot of sense, based on all the events unfolding with specifically 10% of the residents already having Russian passports. And that just makes me think that maybe it's not done under duress as much as the citizens here actually want to be integrated into Russia. And if they do, then you're totally going to see some offensive in September towards Zaporizhia. It's going to be planned, and that's going to be beyond the shadow of a doubt something that Russia plans to achieve before they conclude with this operation. Besides that, I think we're done with Zaporizhia, so I'm going to go on to the Donetsk front and the rest of Donbass. Now, as I speak, there's a lot of heavy fighting across this area of Avdiivka and then south and around all of Donetsk. You see a lot of heavy fighting, a lot of high precision missiles being utilized, a lot of artillery, tanks, stuff like that. You are seeing a very heavy fighting along the front lines. The heaviest has been in a while. You have the Russians. They're shelling Avdiivka incessantly. They're also striking Marinka and Krasnojarifca. They're even striking Toretsk, New York. These areas they are attacking with a magnitude that we haven't seen since the beginning of the operation. And this is necessary if you want to take back the rest of Donetsk, because this area is the most static part of the front line. It has been since the beginning, and it's been fortified for 8 years, as I've talked about before. And what we're seeing now is that Russia has made some minor gains, and I'm going to go over them. I made some adjustments to the map accordingly. So what's being said is that Russia, they basically took control of this area. They took control of whatever facility this is, and also of this area. I don't really know what's in here. It's just like a road. But this is a new map just showing the minor Russian gains around the northern area of Marinka. And the reason why Marinka is important is because this has been a key center of fighting. Russia had control of this part of Marinka at the beginning of the war, but they were pushed back. So now Russia's flanking from the north. And we also saw an advance in the direction of Krasnojarifca. The city is, it's not, you don't have Russian boots on the ground in the city itself, but you are seeing Russia getting very close to entering Krasnojarifca. Especially today, you saw a lot of fighting in the area, just due east of the area. And further north, around Donetsk itself, you had fighting towards Opitny and around Pisky here. That might even be under Russian control now. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to check. And yeah, I've talked about this a lot of times about how the reason for all of this is to sort of flank Avdiivka from both sides. So now we're seeing that actually come into fruition. We're in the preliminary stages of that. And I also want to show how you have Russian attacks on Krasnojarifca over here. You have two Krasnojarifkas, funnily enough. And this one is the one near Marinka. And then you have the one near Avdiivka. So you did see Russian gains around this Krasnojarifca. And I'm sure you also had gains around the other Krasnojarifca, but that's not the one that I'm talking about. So that's my bad. You have a lot of Ukrainian villages with the same name. So I might have to adjust the map around Novobakhmutivka, because it might actually be under Russian control by now. Maybe it will be tomorrow or in the next few days, if Russia can continue to gain momentum around the Krasnojarifka front. And then once they consolidate gains here, I don't know how long that will take, but once they do, Avdiivka is going to be in a very precarious position, because they've been attacked incessantly since the beginning of the war, and they're really starting to lose ground around here. And if the Russians continue the momentum, they're just going to have to leave. And there have been rumors that there are beginning withdrawals from Avdiivka, nothing that I can confirm though. We even had a strike on an ammo cache in here. So Avdiivka, yeah, its fall would be a big loss. It would be like Marinka falling, but 3 times larger. So yeah, that would be a big loss for Ukraine, but they would be able to adjust to the new front lines. Now, in Novomykhailivka, we had a Russian strike today on specifically this base of the 53rd Mechanized Brigade, and it basically destroyed their combat effectiveness. So that's big, and we're going to see more of these strikes in the coming days. Now, I want to get to the fighting in the Bakhmut area now. So we had the capture of Novoluhansk, but now it's sort of confirmed by video that Russia has solidified their control over Novoluhansk, and we know, of course, that they took over the power plant. And there's reporting now about fighting in Kadema and Semihirya. So I do expect Ukraine to withdraw from these areas just because of the position that they're in. It's not a favorable position. It would be much easier for them to sort of coalesce around like Zaitseve and Dhaka, something like that. And we also know now the Ukrainians are sort of admitting that Prishtina is under Russian control. And I had it under Russian control for a while, so that's no surprise to me. And we're also hearing about fighting in Vasila Dolina, and those are just rumors, though. So I changed it back from being contested to firmly under Ukrainian control. But I might have to change it back soon, because we might be seeing this attack on Bakhmut coming from the northeast. If what I'm gonna talk about in Solidar continues. So in Solidar, we have, first of all, video from the plant around here in the Knaf factory, which shows that Ukrainians do actually hold the factory, but that it's being shelled. So Russians aren't that far away from the area. Now, the area that is in a different color of red than this orange, that might still be like an open field where you have back and forth, and it's more so no man's land. But you could expect the Russians to sort of come through Bakhmutske, which by now it's not contested yet, but you have Russians very close to the suburb. And then they'll just have to go through and clear out Solidar, which is going to be difficult. Ukraine, they also reported on Yakovlivka that there was some renewed fighting over there, but nothing changed over there. In Berestove, I changed the map a little bit just to show that at least part of the town is still under Ukrainian, not control, but maybe fire control is a better way of putting it, because the Russians, they posted videos of this area of the town, the eastern area. They showed the road, and they showed how completely destroyed the town truly was, which is expected. So I think Ukraine will eventually withdraw from the rest of Berestove, because, yeah, there's no need to continue fighting there. Ukraine has other more favorable positions at the moment. And now I'm just going to go to Kharkov, where there hasn't been much. There were some strikes. There were 7 Iskanders that were detonated. They landed on Kharkov. They hit the industrial and Novobavare districts. We also, according to the Ukrainian sources, they're saying that there's fighting around Supivka, which is interesting. Maybe I'll change the map to show that. And there was also a lot of fighting around the areas of Kozacha Lopan, so around here, and around Sosnivka, and also around Veliki Prahodi, which I don't know where that is. I know where all the other towns were. This one here, which is interesting because that's a bit further deeper into the Russian front lines. It is possible because we heard of clashes in Potomnik a few days ago, but maybe the Ukrainians pushed them back to the Veliki Prady area. Either way, there's fighting in this area. We know that. Nothing big. Some fighting in Dementivka. Basically, nothing new. And Ukraine sort of confirms that my map is still fairly accurate. Ukraine, they tried to strike Belgorod today with missiles, but they were shot down by the Russian air defenses. And Russia conducted raids on the 92nd Brigade near Borshcheva, Sosnovka, and Petrovka, which is just along the front line here in Kharkov. And lastly, in Kharkov, the process of issuing Russian passports has just begun. So maybe we'll see a repeat of what occurred in Zaporizhia happening in the Kharkov region. We've also seen talks between the Kharkov regional government and the Lugansk People's Republic. So we might see some closer ties, and maybe the Kharkov region just gets admitted into Russia. Now that's basically it for the front lines, but there is still a lot of news that I want to cover now. So some of the interesting things that I've read is that this American colonel called Daniel Davis, he's an analyst. He's not affiliated much with the government anymore, but what he's saying is that the Western countries, they might actually stop supplying Ukraine by the fall or winter. And I wouldn't be too surprised because of if Russia gains ground and then the Western countries, they see the writing on the wall, they might just drop support for the Ukrainians and then sort of shift their focus towards the preservation of the countries that are still in NATO. For instance, Poland. We might see that, but at the moment we're still seeing Western countries support the Ukrainians, specifically Germany. They may send 100 self-propelled howitzers and 30 Gepard tanks to Ukraine, which is big news since they've been on the fence about supporting Ukraine for a while now. Maybe that's starting to change. And Russia, they're still working on improving their missiles. The Zircon hypersonic missile, which is supposed to be used on the surface ships of the Russian Navy, it might already be put into service by September 2022. So you could imagine the sort of strikes that would occur if Russia used that on Odessa, for instance, or Mykolaiv, or these coastal cities. And it would be deployed just in time for maybe a southern offensive, if they're able to fend off the Kherson offensive that's going to occur right now. The last thing I want to say is more of a diplomatic affair. The United States is actually willing to trade Brittany Griner, and she, if you don't know, she's arrested in Russia now for drug trafficking, and she's a player on the WNBA, and she's been in there for a while now. There's been a lot of outcry to get her released, but we haven't really seen concrete action from the U.S. government up until now. Another guy that's arrested in Russia from America is this guy called Paul Whelan, and he's a Marine, and he was arrested for espionage in Russia. So Biden, he's offering to release these for Russia to release these two people, and then in exchange, you're gonna have this Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout being released from American prison. So it's basically this prisoner swap. And Bout, I think he supplied like Al Qaeda and the Taliban basically to hinder America's efforts abroad. So yeah, you're seeing that America is starting to sort of begin to speak again with Russia. We heard that Blinken is going to meet with the foreign minister of Russia, and you had Biden talk for 2 hours with Xi Jinping. So you are seeing America take another a more diplomatic approach again to certain issues that are important to them. These niche issues like Brittany Griner. But yeah, nothing big. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.